Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, September 16th, 2019. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Patrick Murphy. Patrick, this Ohio State team, I think we all expected them to be very good. I mean, they look dominant. They look great. I already had high expectations for this team. I've taken those up a notch. And just the way they just blew the doors off Indiana 51-10, a week after just waxing Cincinnati 42-0, I just could not be more impressed with what I'm seeing from Ryan Day's football team.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to be. We came into the year with pretty high expectations. This is a Buckeye team that's supremely talented. Obviously, they've recruited very well. They've had success in recent years, but with Urban Meyer retiring and a changeover in staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball, we certainly had some question marks. And through the first few weeks of the season here, it seems like most of those have been answered. What was Justin Fields going to be? Well, in his first 3 games as Ohio State's starting quarterback, he's seemed to be answering the bill, putting up yards through the air and on the ground, getting the Buckeyes into the end zone, whether he's on the end of it or not. The running game has continued from week one and built each week with J.K. Dobbins. He looks like the bell cow back he talked about all off season. The receivers don't seem to be missing a beat after losing 3 senior wide receivers, and the defense looks much improved. Offensive line looks, I could go on and on. We could talk about each position piece by piece, but I think so far everyone is exceeding expectations. What I will say is I don't think this team has been fully challenged. I thought Cincinnati was going to be that challenge, and maybe it was, and maybe this is just a really good football team. But until we get into Big Ten play and facing the Wisconsins and some of those teams who have also looked really good, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I've been very impressed with Ohio State so far under Ryan Day.
Yeah, it's very exciting for Buckeye fans. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Buckeye fans that were very confident in this team, but still, in the back of their mind, maybe in the forefront of their mind, they still had a little bit of concern when you replace a legend like Urban Meyer, and then Ryan Day looks like the latest home run hire for Ohio State. Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, Ryan Day. I know it's very early. I know we had the 1 year of Luke Fickell as well. But really, I mean, the 3 coaches since John Cooper so far looking, obviously Tressel and Urban were Grand Slam home runs, and Ryan Day is looking like that so far. Again, very early. So let's talk about, you touched on this a little bit. I mean, what do you expect moving forward? Just how high, has your expectations been raised? Do you think this is a playoff team now? Do you think this is a Big Ten championship team now? And, who do you think the Buckeyes' biggest threat is in the Big Ten? And this, I tell you, Patrick, this Big Ten, as you know, is not looking as strong as we thought. They had a bad week this last week. But just what are your expectations now for Ohio State, and who do you think their biggest threat is in the Big Ten?
Coming into the season, I thought this is a team that had the potential to make the playoffs, just based on talent alone, with how well they've recruited at the end of the Urban Meyer era. And so far they've done nothing to change that. Now, I do think that if given these first few games, this looks like a team that should make the playoff. I know currently in the AP and coaches poll they're ranked number 6, but obviously there's a lot of football left to be played. So, in my mind, this team is doing everything right, offensively, defensively. There have been few weaknesses, and the weaknesses that we have seen early on, I think the next week you've seen improvements in that area. So that's a very good sign, and the sign of a team that I think should make the college football playoff. Now, I reserve the right to change that opinion as the season goes on, obviously. But from what I've seen so far, as for the biggest test, I'm still a little nervous about that trip to Nebraska. I think that that's a team that, while they haven't played up to their level, or up to the hype, I guess I should say, from the preseason, is still a very talented team. I think Scott Frost is a very good coach, and I think when Ohio State comes in, they're going to be about as dialed in as they've been all season. So that game is still a little nervy, I think, from an Ohio State perspective. The Northwestern game on the road, a Friday night game, which will change your whole week. I think guys, when they get in a routine, you have to change that for just 1 week. That could throw things off a little bit. I think Ohio State certainly has the talent and coaching to win that game, but if you mess things up too much for routine guys, maybe it makes it closer than necessary. And then, Wisconsin looked very good. While Michigan hasn't looked good, we all know what that game is. So there's definitely still places for Ohio State to trip up. As you mentioned, the Big Ten has not looked as good as maybe we expected coming into the year. So, does a one-loss Big Ten champion get into the playoff? I think, we can have that debate as we get further down the road. But I think right now Ohio State needs to focus on, and they have each week, handling their business. I think Ryan Day is very determined to not have an Iowa, a Purdue type game that they just inexplicably lose way worse than they should. But I think right now this team's focus should be obviously 1 week at a time, but being undefeated. It's been a while since we've seen an undefeated Ohio State team. That was Urban Meyer's first year. And this team right now, like I said at the beginning, looks like a team that could do that. But take it one game at a time and really focus on getting better each week. And I think that's what they've done so far.
Yeah, they were favored by kickoff. I think it was down to like 16.5 against Cincinnati. For a while it was 17. They win that game 42-0. They were early on favored by like 15.5 over Indiana. Then by kickoff it was like 18.5. They win that game by 41. This team is just so impressive right now. I guess the only bad thing to come out of the Indiana game, Tyreke Smith, there wasn't a lot of talk about this because they're not talking about injuries over there. Sophomore defensive end had to leave the Indiana game. Looked like he was in street clothes in the second half. Again, I don't think we're going to get it, much of anything till Friday about that, but not good news if true. He had off-season surgery. I believe it was groin surgery, but I think whatever he did with that, I don't think this was related to that. I think this was like a shoulder injury or something like that. Just what did you see? What are you hearing about Tyreke Smith?
Yeah, at the game we didn't even notice he was out until I think people started to hear about it from guys that were watching at home. So that was kind of a surprise to me, and I think that just shows kind of the depth that this defensive line has, and obviously Tyreke Smith and Tyler Friday, along with Jonathan Cooper, who's yet to play, all three missed the opening game, and Ohio State was still fine against Florida Atlantic defensively, but I think this is an unfortunate loss if he has to miss more time. I wrote about Tyreke Smith last week. He came in against Cincinnati, got his first career sack. I thought looked very good. Ryan Day said, he could be a guy who could be next in line with the Bosa's and the Chase Youngs of the world. He said he doesn't like those comparisons. He wants to be Tyreke Smith, but he also wants to be the best defensive end Ohio State's had. So, those are lofty goals for a kid who certainly has the talent, has only been playing football for a few years, started in high school, admitted that coming to Ohio State was a bit of a shock to his system because he couldn't just use his athleticism. He had to really refine his skills, and I think he started to do that. So hopefully this wasn't a huge issue. Obviously in a game like that, when you start to pull away before halftime, maybe you are a bit more precautionary with guys. But this is the negative side of not talking about injuries is we won't know much until Friday. Unless we hear things from other people, but haven't heard much yet. We'll see what we hear throughout the week, but hopefully he's able to get back. Hopefully Jonathan Cooper's able to get back and they can really start rolling even more guys through on this defensive line, especially the defensive end position.
Yeah, looking at this defense, with a couple guys banged up, especially a key guy like Tyreke Smith, this defense is one of the best defenses that I've seen during my time covering the team, even going back to my younger days as just a fan, my time in college as a fan. I mean, you think recently the 2016 defense really stands out. That was an excellent defense. That you think about that defensive backfield with, Malik Hooker and Garyon Conley and Marshawn Lattimore, all first-round picks that left after that year. And then they had some guy named Denzel Ward that was the number 3 corner as a sophomore on that team, number 4 overall pick the year after that. So that 2016 defense was stacked. They even had true freshman Nick Bosa, who played really well, and many other guys who were very good. But, I think back to, obviously, 2002. That's always going to be up there as one of the best defenses we've seen at Ohio State. All 11 starters were NFL draft picks. And the latest of any of those guys that were taken was Donnie Nicky in the 5th round. Most of those guys were first, second, third-round guys from that 2002 National Championship defense, even the 2014 National Championship defense. But, man, Patrick, this 2019 defense, they're talented, they're fast, they're physical, and they're well-coached. We're seeing guys that are going to be first-round picks for sure in this coming draft, with Chase Young, Jeff Okudah, Malik Harrison. I think will be like a second-day pick, like a second-rounder probably. I mean, he could be a first-rounder. I mean, he has that look, but I bet being a linebacker will be more of a second-rounder. So many other guys. Devon Hamilton's playing great. I could go on and on. Jordan Fuller, Sean Wade. This defense, let me ask you this question, and, you can throw multiple years out there like I just did, but this is the best Ohio State defense since ... Patrick Murphy?
I think that's still to be determined. 3 games is, as we said earlier, a small sample size, and it's not as if they have played the most elite offenses, but still the 12th ranked defense in the country right now, allowing 252, just under 253 yards per game. That doesn't tell everything, I don't think. They've obviously brought backups into the game in all of the 3 games so far. So, I want to see this defense really tested. I think that will go to answer our question. I think that'll start to happen here in a couple weeks when we really get into Big Ten play and watch the Buckeyes against some better offenses. But so far, like you mentioned, I think it's been very impressive. The scheme that these coaches have come up with is really seems to fit these players. A guy like Pete Warner, who last year fans were very off on, I think is really changing some people's minds. He was again one of the top tacklers, if not, I think he tied for the team lead in tackles again. Just seems to be all over the field making plays, and the way he's playing, it fits his style, the way he wants to play. Damon Arnett, another guy who hadn't played well consistently throughout his Ohio State career. He's not been phenomenal for these first 3 games, but you also haven't seen anything where you're like, oh, Damon Arnett again. The penalties are down. He obviously had the pick 6, which was a great run after catch for him on Saturday. The list goes on. You listed a variety of guys as well. So the way the coaches have made this scheme fit the players, gotten the right players out on the field, I think so far, it looks like this defense should be mentioned with the ones you mentioned, 2016, 2002, those type of elite defenses. We'll see down the road where they end up, but I think they're right in the mix with those guys, at least so far.
Yeah, I think back in 2005 is another great defense that year. That if they didn't run into, they played future national champion Texas, here in Columbus, and if not for the quarterback shuffling, Ohio State likely wins that game. Even with the quarterback shuffling, they should have won that game. And I understand, just to digress for a second, I understand why Tress did that, because that was, I think people in retrospect give Tress a hard time that he played both Justin Zwick and Troy Smith and kind of rotated them in that game. But that was Troy Smith's first game coming back from suspension. So Tressel was not the type of guy who's going to be like, okay, even though you served your time, your 2-game suspension, you got to set out the Alamo Bowl against Oklahoma State, and then the season opener against Miami of Ohio, and then Tress decided we're going to play both quarterbacks, and they still should have won. But anyway, and then they lost to a really good Penn State team on the road. But that 2005 Ohio State defense was tremendous as well. But yeah, this one's right up there. As far as NFL talent, as far as what they're going to do on the field, in my opinion, this year, I think we're going to look back on the 2019 defense as, oh wow, that was a great defense. 1996 is another one to go way back. The original Silver Bullets, that's the year that it was coined. 1996 defense was tremendous. So love talking some defense. But we'll finish the show with some offense. There's been a lot of praise about, tons of praise, toward Justin Fields, and rightfully so. I mean, he looks great. But the running backs and I think the offensive line, they might not be getting enough publicity. I know it's still a small sample size, but I like what I'm seeing from the running backs. J.K. Dobbins, Master T continues to look like he's going to be a future standout, maybe a current standout. He looks like Joe Montgomery, but better. And Joe Montgomery was really good. Maybe that's just the number 33, but no, I think they kind of look like similar players, just Master T looks better and faster. And the offensive line looks good. Just what are you seeing from the running backs and the O-line, Patrick?
A lot of good stuff, especially on Saturday. That was about as well as they'd played collectively, I think. It was, Ryan Day called the first game a funky performance. He said there were some runs that just didn't, JK just didn't hit the hole, or the hole wasn't there. Still ended up with almost 100 yards rushing, so JK still had a pretty decent day, but they being the offense were much more pleased with the performance last week or 2 weeks ago now against Cincinnati, where he was well over 100 yards and got out of the game just after the halftime. But this past week I thought was about as good as I've seen this group play yet. Obviously JK had the very big day, 2 touchdowns, 1 through the air, 1 on the ground. Probably should have had another one that he dropped early in the game, but 193 yards. I was hoping he stayed in the game for 1 more carry to try and bust a 10-yard run and get to his career high rushing, which he set last year against Maryland. But they got Master Teague in the game, and all he did was 106 yards on 10 carries. So not a bad day for either of them. And credit to the O-line. I don't know if they got enough credit after the game for what they did. The players and coaches gave them a lot of credit, but nationally, I don't think people were talking about them as much. This is a group that had to replace 4 guys, and 4 experienced guys, and they've done well so far this year. A few hiccups in that first game, and obviously that's to be expected, but I think they've done very well. One play that stuck to me in particular on the O-line, and I don't remember exactly when it was in the game, but they got Indiana to jump offside, and Josh Myers snaps the ball, and I'm not even sure Justin Fields called for it, but he was obviously able to catch it, and they took a shot downfield. But just a heads-up play by Josh Myers to get the ball off. You see that the guys jumped offside. That's a kid who's only started in 3 games. So stuff like that is starting to help, or starting to happen for this line, and that's starting to help the Buckeyes. And obviously they're opening up holes and protecting Justin Fields pretty well.
Good stuff from Patrick Murphy. Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you very much to all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.